We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 103 of Born to be Wild, a Wild exclusive Hearthstone podcast where we have fun hanging out with friends, talking about the Wild format of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the Wild community. I am your host, as always, Nate Wolf. It is great to be back on a beautiful spring evening here from Portland, Oregon, joining you tonight with two of my favorite people. Hydralisk is off tonight, but in his place we have Goliath the Dwarf back with another lore episode, picking up kind of where we left off last time with some of the Nazjatar stuff, but getting into the Sunken City. Really excited to dive in here. But before I do that, I just want to say good evening to my great friends here. So first up, Electric Sheep City, how are you tonight?
Meowdy, I am here. It's been a very long and exhausting week, work, but also I'm packing. So packing is going on, and in 2 weeks I will be moving. So the end is nigh, and the packing push, the packing push is upon us.
Nice.
So that's what's happening in Sheep City.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here amidst all the chaos. Real life has been quite busy this week, I think, for all of us, like checking in, and it's like, wow, hey, but we made it, we're here, and that's good. And joining us back tonight, resident Loremaster Goliath the Dwarf, thank you again for coming back. How are you tonight?
Doing good, always happy to be here. This is definitely something that I love, having a break at the end of my busy week, because for anyone listening later, this is being recorded just like the week before Easter. And I don't know about your guys' work, but for me, I work in a newspaper, and with the way that things go, you need to have things turned in at a certain time when you write it up, because there's a whole editorial and printing process that happens. And so since none of those people want to have to do work on a holiday, everything gets pushed back in terms, or pushed forward, whichever the term is, for deadlines and such. So it's been a week for me, multitasking on a few different things, including some of the recapping and research for this, but holiday prep and all that. But it's all worth it when I can come here and just relax, forget about everything else, and take some. Again, we use the pun way too much right now, but the deep dive into these stories.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's a good one tonight too.
Yes, it is. So, without further ado, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. Let me briefly explain how the show works. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/BornToBeWildHS. And the video version of this podcast is posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. So however you're watching or listening or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Ahoy, hoy!
Yes. Hey, thank you, everybody. And yeah, however you're watching or listening or whatever, we really appreciate it. So big, gigantic thank you to those of you who are hanging out with us here in Twitch chat. It's always great to see you. Thank you for hanging out with us. We love to see it. And to everyone else, listening to the podcast, the audio versions are on YouTube. Yeah, thank you so much. Real quick housekeeping before we get started. I want to say a quick but very important thank you to Shokunin, who is the executive producer of our show. Your support means the world to us, and we really appreciate it. Very recently he donated a mega bundle to the show, and that was very awesome. And so thank you so much for your support, and thank you also to our patrons. Your help is immeasurable, and we very much appreciate it. If you are looking for ways to support the show, there are a couple free ways to do it. If you leave a like, a comment, subscription on the YouTube, it helps other people find us. Same kind of thing with the audio podcast. If you leave a review on iTunes or Spotify or Amazon Podcast or wherever else, it helps people to find us. If you are watching live on Twitch and you are interested in supporting, if you give us a subscribe here, there's some emotes that you can unlock. This is free. If you use Amazon Prime, there is a free subscription option. We do have some brand new emotes that we've had, I guess, for a couple weeks now that are super fun. And then finally, if you're interested in donating, we do have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month that supports the show directly. Lastly, if you would like to interact with any of us personally, we do have a Discord server. For those of you not familiar, it's just an online community of friends that we've made all across the world. We talk throughout the week. We share screenshots. We share deck lists. We chat. We share memes. We talk about real life, and it's just a super kind of fun and wholesome place. And that's where I get all my deck lists. And have fun doing some co-ops and stuff like that. If you're interested in finding any of this stuff, the easiest way is to just visit our website, borntobewildhs.com, and links to all of it is there. Okay, that's it. That is the housekeeping. Let's jump into the show proper. And the reason that everybody's here tonight is to learn the lore behind the Sunken City. And this is I just want to preface it very briefly, saying that this is the first time I've truly, I researched for this one, and it makes me just appreciate what you do even more, Goliath, because I spent hours. I remember thinking, last week my wife and son were out of town for half the week visiting her folks, and they're back now, but I had time, and I'm sitting here and oh yeah, I'll just devote a couple hours to this. I want to do my homework. I want to read. I want to kind of write it up because we might use this for something else down the line, and let's just do this. And all of a sudden, it's been 8 hours. It's now dark outside. It's almost 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, oh, I guess I better eat something. And wow. I mean, we keep using the joke / pun of taking the deep dive, but there is rabbit hole upon rabbit hole upon rabbit hole. And so tonight we are going to be doing some skipping around, because otherwise this would be an 8-hour episode.
This is what happens when you have a universe of people have been contributing story elements to for nigh on 20 years. So
right? Yes.
Yeah.
And so many people working together, adding this bit and that bit across games, comics, books, even audio dramas sometimes. It took me, I'd say maybe at least 2 years or more to get to the level of expertise that I have now. And even still, I have to go and refresh myself on many things before we talk about it, because there's just way too much to contain in one memory at a time.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much here. And then the one caveat that I want to throw out before passing the mic off to Goliath is that if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, you may want to check out the video version on YouTube, because as we talk about the story elements, we'll have pictures on the screen of whether it's artwork from the game or screenshots from World of Warcraft or the actual Hearthstone cards. And something that we point out many times are that the developers and artists are very intentional about the references that they use. And so many times the things that you see on the cards are pulled from game elements that you wouldn't know without knowing the story behind, which just makes it all that more interesting. So if you're interested in seeing, the artwork of the pictures as you're hearing the story, check it out. Otherwise, enjoy. And oh, sorry, final thing. I do have all of this typed up in a giant document in Google Docs. We'll put it in the show notes if anyone wants to dive into it. It is 38 pages. Wow.
And it's a very brief summary of many elements here. It doesn't scratch the surface.
Quite gigante.
It is, yes, absolutely. All right, well, that is it from me. Loremaster, please take us away.
All right, so in order to talk about Naga and a sunken city, we first have to talk about that city before it was sunk and the people who lived there. But before that, we need to talk about who built the city and what were they like beforehand. So we actually have to take a trip really far back, past the 10,000 years that Illidan so often references. The 10,000 years, make it more 15,000 years or something. I'm a little rusty on some of the exact dates on things, but essentially we're going to talk to the evolution of a whole race here. Because I'm going to start, we're going to play a little game, guys. I don't know if you stumbled across this while you were doing your research here, but we're going to guess, where do night elves come from? I am going to list off 4 different races here, that one of them evolved into night elves, and I want you to guess which one it is. You ready?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so race number 1 is blood elves. Race number 2 is humans. Race number 3 is trolls. Race number 4 is Void Elves, and race number 5 is the Nightborn Elves. Which one evolved into Night Elves?
Okay, so it's obviously not Nightborn elves because, those were born. So I'm going to go with Blood Elves. I have nothing to base that off of. Just, they were bloody and then they turned out the lights. So boom, Night Elves.
Nate, what are you thinking?
I I you know I don't see how it could be trolls. It seemed like it would be like one type of elf and then maybe they turn into a different type of elf. So I think I'll go ahead and say blood elf as well.
Okay. The correct answer is trolls.
Spoiler!
What? I
So
thought that
here's
was
the
there
thing.
just to be the
Mistakes
obvious,
were
like,
made.
no.
I purposely threw in several different elves to see if I could throw you off on it.
Sneaky.
But no, see, what happened was that many millennia ago, it was the trolls who were the dominant race in the world. There was the Great Troll Empire ruled by different tribes. They eventually kind of splintered off into things. Generally, were ruled by like the Zandalari, and you've got other things that a lot of them are featured in the Rexicon's Rumble set. We have like, Gurabashi trolls, Amani, Drakaki, just a whole bunch of these different ones. But there was one particular very small, isolated group of trolls that were simply called the Dark Trolls because they were nocturnal and stayed beneath the ground all the time and didn't come out until it was night. So, basically, they didn't have any socialization with any other groups of trolls. And because they lived underground, they had like very dark purple, blackish type of skin and everything. But what happened was that eventually they made their way over to the Well of Eternity, this great big body of water, this lake essentially, in the very middle of the singular continents of Kalimdor that was on Azeroth. It was just all one Pangea-like continent way back at this point. And they settled over near it.
The story of the Well of Eternity is so cool, and if you haven't listened to our lore of Yasiraj, then you should do that because
Yes.
it's so anyways, sorry, spoilers.
Yes, yeah, that is the first in our Old God series, if you want to go back and listen to that. But essentially, the end result was there's this vast churning sea that is just filled with potent, arcane, life-giving magic. Like, this Well of Eternity is the reason that natural sentient life evolved on Azeroth in the first place. You want to know why there's so many animal-based races on Azeroth? Because the magic energies of the Well of Eternity spread across the whole world and actually accelerated the evolution, granting many of these beings sentience. So that's why you have panda people and cow people and fox people and all of that different stuff going on.
Very cool.
Yeah. And the trolls were actually one of the first races that really were able to take off. But because these particular dark trolls settled so close to the Well of Eternity, it really magically quickened up that evolution. It accelerated and their forms became sleeker. Their intelligence expanded. They developed more refined culture and language. And to the extent where they were eventually no longer a type of troll, they were now the very first elves. They began to worship a new deity, tossing aside the old Loa that trolls used to worship, and instead worshiping Elune, the goddess of the moon, who they believed had a special link with the Well of Eternity. Through communing with Elune and through various Titan artifacts they found, they learned more about the nature of the world in which they lived, even some of the old language that influenced their language. And they took the name Kaldori, which means children of the stars, because, they only come out at night and everything, and they have the connection with the moon and all that.
It's a Smashing Pumpkin song.
And so that is essentially how the Night Elves get started. And
I do have
over time.
I was gonna say I do have the map here if you want me to pull it up as well.
Yeah. So
Okay, sorry about that.
the Night Elves build a civilization along the banks of the Well of Eternity. And over time, it expands. They start to develop more technology, particularly when they start to explore the depths of the well and really find ways to draw on its magic. They're the first arcane sorcerers on Azeroth who know how to wield this particular type of magic. Now, it just so happened that Cenarius had noticed this burgeoning race and had taken liking to them and tried to show them some cool nature druidy type of stuff, but they weren't very interested. They're like, no, we want this really powerful stuff that's down in the well right here. And they were able to expand out over time until eventually Queen Ajara took the throne, ruled for many centuries, and she is considered to be the most powerful mortal sorcerer in Azeroth's entire history. In fact, it's debatable at this point if she eventually just ceased to actually be mortal. But she, yeah, very, very powerful. And I'll just say it. She was the biggest egomaniac in Azeroth's history as well. They tell what you learned about what it was that one of the first things that she did when she became queen.
Oh god, this is hilarious, right? So yeah, she becomes the queen, right? She's super interested in the Well of Eternity, and she's got this quest for power and like really interesting character, right? So she's ruling for a long time. She's the lore says that she's born with golden eyes, which is supposed to be super rare and considered super beautiful. And so on top of her normal, like, she's super magical and super beautiful. She's got these glowy golden eyes, and so her advisor, Night Elf Lord guy named Xavius, which we'll get to later, presents her with the jeweled scepter. It has magical powers. He says that, hey, as long as you keep this close, you'll bring you prosperity and power. And so the first thing that she does, she got this magic scepter, could like grant your wishes, right? Do whatever. The first thing she does is like, and keep in mind, this is the queen who is like renowned for her beauty. And the first thing that she does is use the magic powers to make herself more beautiful. Like, okay.
Like I said, the ultimate egomaniac. It goes beyond that. She had a natural charisma, but it was also very magically enhanced. She loved to instill violent passions in people, particularly jealousy was one that she loved to get, where she could make anyone do anything for her favor.
I do have
even get people to fight to the death, and sometimes she would break it up, and sometimes she's like, nah, I like watching them fight to the death over me. It makes me feel good, strokes my ego well.
Wow. Hey, I do have a quick question. And so if you're listening to the audio version, you may not know this, but if you see the character in this is the new mage skin. When I think of Night Elf, right, I like jumping back just super quick. When I think about Night Elves, like the classic examples are these main three. So Malfurion, Tyrande, Illidan, like they have purple skin, right? But when I look at the queen, she is blue, quite blue. Is there a reason for that? I'm just curious. I don't know the answer.
Nothing that I'm aware of that is specifically stated. I think that it's more along the lines of just limitations in terms of the skin colors that you can pick as a character in the game. They decided to change it up. Maybe that was one of the ways she made herself more beautiful. She's like, I'm going to make myself blue. No one else is blue. And that's just me guessing, but like it could have been like she could have made herself blue. I don't know.
Does she have a blue house and everything is just blue for her.
Blue for her.
Well, I mean, looking at the picture of the city that you have, everything does look pretty blue here. So the lore doesn't say what her favorite color was. Maybe.
I joke, but the vanity is crazy, right? So they, you know, she's super obsessed, right, with the Well of Eternity and the power potential, and so she's like, all right, cool, build my palace on the shore of the Well of Eternity. And so and then to you know, so here's a picture of Oshron Gardens from the new set, with a backdrop of the city here. And then they renamed the city, right? And so
Right. It was initially named Alunadora, means the eye of a loon. So it's the goddess that they worship. And like, you know, she essentially is why they are successful. Her blessings allowed them to expand as they did, develop as they did. Ashira has such a huge ego that she has the city renamed after her, essentially usurping herself to be the deity who is worshipped. And she is worshipped. She is adored by everybody. Like, so here's the thing. She has this circle of like real snooty aristocrats that keep around her. They all live in the palace and stuff. Some of them, like you mentioned, Xavius, he's the chief advisor. Another one is Lady Vash, who becomes the very first, like the head of the handmaidens. Who wait on the queen. And there's just so many like this. And they become collectively known as the Highborn. They tend to focus more on the arcane sorcery aspect, developing all the power. That they're essentially just like what everyone thinks is the worst stereotypes of all the rich and powerful, the politicians, the millionaire business people, just all of that. Turn them into elves. This is what you get here. And all of the common Keldarai hate these people, like with a passion. But it doesn't extend to the queen, because everyone adores Queen Ashara. Which I'm thinking probably she's working some of that magic right there, just the charisma and everything. It's like, no, everyone, I command everyone to love me. And it's like, that's just how it works there.
Yeah, so a couple of our characters are our Hearthstone cards from this new set. So if everyone noticed, there's a lot of new portraits that are unlockable, particularly through the rewards track. But one of them is a shaman portrait that's called Kaldorai Vash. And yeah, this is the same Lady Vash of the Naga portrait for the shaman, but this is her prior to transforming into a Naga. And so... it's pretty cool.
I'll tell you a fun little story about Vaj here. So among other things, she is said to have very unique cat-like eyes, which you can see in one of the pictures right here. And she was obsessed with trying to become as much like Ashira as possible, obsessed with becoming her favorite, and was jealous of any potential threat to her standing in position. Like, she tried to make her hair in the same style as Ajira, dress in the same way as the queen, like it's the royal trend-setting type of thing, and she is obsessed with it. So much so that there is this one point in this book set during the War of the Ancients. It's a trilogy where Tyrande Whisperwind is captured fighting against Ajara, and we'll get onto that in just a sec. And Ajara and Vosh come down to visit her in prison, and Ajara just kind of playfully asks, hey, you could come work for me and be one of my handmaidens. And Tyranda's like, thanks, but no thanks, I serve a loon above anyone else. And Ajara just walks off, even though she meant that half-jokingly. And even though Tyrande turned it down, Vosh is crazy with jealousy and internalize in her head that Tyrande is a rival and she tries to kill her because she's like, I'm not going to have a chance of letting you be more beautiful than me or more favored by the queen than me. It's like, so she has a particular hatred for Tyrande just because of that. That's how Hearthstone Vosh is.
Wow.
But so this is the situation that Quidishara and the Highborn are living in. There are, of course, the more normal Night Elves, the Kaldori, and many of them actually do follow Cenarius and become Malfurion is the first druid and stuff. But they're the dirty people who live way out in the woods, and we're not like a civilized Highborn elves. And that particular ego is what is going to spell the doom of this entire civilization. Because one day Xavius it receives a vision from the demon lord Sargeras, who disguises himself as this great, just powerful, benevolent being. And Xavius is like, wow, this is a god that is talking to me here. I'm going to tell the queen. And so he goes to Guidajara, and they do some communing with Sargeras and everything. And she is like, this guy is just the match that I want. Like, I am so great. I deserve to be the bride of a god. I'm going to bring Sargeras here, and then he will remake the world into a paradise just for me and my Highborn, getting rid of all this scum. Because, they're also really racist and consider any creature that's not a high elf to be beneath them. So get rid of all those lesser races, just have the highborn rule everything, and everything will be perfect for us if we bring Sargeras in.
Oh, it was so funny. She goes
Wow.
she's like, he's the only one worthy of me, right? It's not even like, oh, he's a god, I'll make a good mate for him. He's like, nah, he's the only one that is suitable for me. Like, she's so full,
like I said,
it's the ego,
world's biggest egomaniac.
Yeah.
And our image right here, we currently don't really have images of Xavius back when he was just the elf advisor, but he later got corrupted because, of course, Sargeras isn't this wonderful benevolent god. He is literally a demon lord, a fallen titan who has a goal of using his vast demonic army called the Burning Legion to wipe out all life in the universe. Because he thinks that it's inevitable life will become corrupted by old gods and stuff, and he's like, it's better to just do scorched universe. Maybe life will regrow again, but what's important is that none of it gets corrupted. He's a very extreme individual. And
Big yikes.
yeah. And so they didn't even know about Azeroth beforehand. But all of the crazy degrees of arcane magic that the Highborn were doing sent this huge beacon through space, essentially, that led all the demons right to there. And so, they're the reason that... Because if it weren't for that, none of the stuff that happens in Warcraft that was spawned by, events caused by the Burning Legion, including the Horde coming over, because that was a Burning Legion thing trying to take over Azeroth, weaken it up for a demon invasion. If Ajira and the Highborn hadn't been so magic, super magic, all for me, none of this would have happened, and things would be a whole lot more peaceful. But nope. She's just ruined everything for so many millions of people in all the generations.
So what you're saying is this is why we don't have nice things.
Yes! Queen Ajara is why we can't have nice things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, this is crazy. So they're it's so funny because it reminds me of Kalthus, where he says power, my people are addicted to it. And so they got this well of eternity that's untapped arcane, limitless power, right? And they're like, yeah, let's experiment with it. Let's do magic, and it Sargeras, the Dark Titan or whatever, is like, oh yeah, well, let's just maybe turn it into a portal to bring the Burning Legion into Azeroth.
Right, because that's the thing. The Burning Legion, he can send visions and commune with all of that stuff, but they're really, really far away on a cosmic scale, so the only way to have a realistic invasion is to have a direct portal. And the only thing that's big enough to get Sargeras himself through is to turn the Well of Eternity itself into a demonic portal. And so, obviously, there's smaller portals and stuff that are sent through, and Ashara basically invites the Burning Legion over, and starts what we call the War of the Ancients, which is a huge story that we do not have time to talk about at all. But this is the part where you have Tyrande, Illidan Malfurion. Illidan has his whole first steps to becoming a demon hunter type of thing. And it's just a whole big thing that eventually ends with the three of them and their forces finding a way to use the dragon's soul to reverse the Well of Eternity that sucks all the demons back through the portal and makes it explode. And it is such a powerful explosion with this huge magically infused well that it shatters the land. The seas all rush in to fill it, and so what was previously one continent is now a whole bunch of separate continents that has a lot of gaps and things that are sinking down beneath it. And this is known as the Sundering. The place where the Well of Eternity was becomes this huge whirlpool that is known as the Maelstrom, which actually ends up also somehow being a portal to the elemental plane of Earth. I'm not entirely certain how that works, but it works.
If I recall correctly, what happened was you get into the Deathwing stuff, where Deathwing is corrupted by N'Zoth and uses the dragon soul to like zap Malygos and is ready to fight the other ones, and then he starts like bursting apart at the seams from all his like corrupt, crazy old god energy, and so he like runs off. And my understanding is that he goes off to hide in the elemental plane, right? I think he
yeah, because he has a special connection with the earth. It's a place that can accelerate his healing.
And so my understanding is when he came back, he traveled through it and it broke. What is it? Broke the world spine
World
or whatever
pillar.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and so like, thanks, Deathwing.
Yeah,
it's crazy how it all ties together. Like, there's so much of it. It's just, it's like, oh my goodness, and and even that, like, the stuff you tap into is just like, we could talk about the War of the Ancients for hours and hours, and it gets into the Illidan origin story. I will say one quick side note without going too far down a rabbit hole is that if you haven't played it already, or even if you have, I recommend going back and playing the Demon Hunter Initiate like prologue story, the PvE content in Hearthstone. After listening to this or reading the accompanying Word doc, because it covers all of this stuff. You can kind of play through it. And so, like, I had played through it at the time before reading any of this or talking to you, and it's like, all right, well, okay, this is kind of interesting, but like, it I don't know. It's like when you've watched a movie, like, before you read the book, and then you read the book, and then you watch the movie again, and you're like, oh, that's cool. I see where they pulled that from. Oh, but they left this out. And like, that's this here. And so now when I see this stuff, I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Oh, that's why he was doing this. Oh, that's why he's trying the old double cross. Anyways, this is all, it's like, it's crazy deep, and it's pretty fun. So the Maelstrom, yes. So this is the remnants essentially, right, of the Well of Eternity that has now basically been destroyed. Like, it collapses on itself after they managed to use the dragon soul to like reverse the portal and suck all the demons out, and then it just breaks, and now I've got this like endlessly like crazy giant whirlpool where the Well of Eternity used to be, with a magic portal down to the elemental kingdom or whatever, down up in the middle of it, and crazy.
And one of the things, because being directly next to the banks of the Well of Eternity, the city of Zinashari is getting a lot of collateral damage right here. It's sinking beneath the waves. Shura and all of her highborn were all taking refuge in her huge palace. And naturally, that just goes down. She actually attempted to hold back the water for a while with her power, but even she can't, hold back the entire ocean indefinitely,
Only for
and
so
it just
long.
felt
Yep.
right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I remember reading about it, and because she falls back on her like magic scepter, and she's like, "Cool, scepter, make it so that we can all breathe underwater." And it's like it's not working. She's like, "Uh oh."
Oh no.
It's that that meme that says like, "I'm a genius." Oh no. Right?
Yeah. And so they are all sinking down into unfathomable depths and, all drowning. There's no land anywhere for them to swim to. I'm not even certain if any of them would be very good swimmers anyway, being the pampered aristocrats that they were. And so essentially, like a lot of the other night elves, the resistance ones who were fighting against them, like Malfurion and Illidan and whatnot, they took shelter in a high ground safe area. That was kind of their headquarters, Mount Hyjal, a very druid-centric place. But, not so much all these highborn folks here. And as they are going down, this is the part that we talked about a bit last time, so we're just going to skim over it a bit now. But where Ajira gets reached out to by a different cosmic entity, not the Lord of the Burning Legion this time, but the old god N'Zoth, who is like, hey, you like making deals, huh? I've got a deal for you. Serve me, get me free out of my prison, and I'll let you live. And then
She's like,
they,
nah, you'll make me
Yep.
queen instead."
Yeah,
It's so
she,
funny. Even they're drowning, right? Like
yeah.
that shows the level of charisma here. Like
Mhm.
she's dying and she's like bargaining with the old god, and like the way I read it, it was like, well, N'Zoth kind of realizing like, well, okay, like if this is going to be my opportunity to escape, I guess so. But it kind of shows just the level of charisma and power here, and just
Yeah. She
uh
bargains almost as if she were an equal because, N'Zoth is in prison, can't really realistically do all that much except talk to her.
well,
And,
maybe he
yeah.
should have like represented himself as like a kraken instead of as a fish with little red eyes,
Well, I
a
mean,
little bit more
eventually he
imposing.
showed her a vast vision of his tentacly self and the Black Empire and all that, showing all its glory, and she's like, okay, this is cool. I want to rule over this. She wants to rule over everything. Um, and so, actually, it later turns out like she's not all that big on serving. She's using N'Zoth as a means to an end here. But essentially she kind of takes the bargain and she is transformed into a Naga, as are all of her highborn followers. And this not only transforms them physically, but, infusing with dark magic, it also means they are, like, kind of just consumed with hate by nature now, brings out all the darker impulses. Ajira kind of keeps on morphing, actually, so this is a bit of an older image that we have
Mm-hmm.
of her, where she's more like the typical Naga. That's not actually what she looks like, more of just like a representation of her. When we actually see her, we see her as she is in the card, which is a much more squid-like, and like the extra eyes, almost like a crown or something. The lore states that it was like the dark magic was bringing out all of the darkness and wickedness that was inside her all along, that she held, kind of, but she, like I said, made herself magically beautiful and everything. This is kind of like that whole thing of showing what your inner self is on the outside. But of course, her most important features were preserved by the power of Blizzard wanting fanboys to enjoy looking at the character. So, much like Sylvanas, like, I am undead, but I'm still really pretty. And so, Ajara still manages to preserve some of that to an extent. But, yeah.
That's
At any rate,
hilarious. Yeah. I know that makes sense. And actually, we've seen. I do have a question here because what we'd seen, particularly when we talked about, them historically revisiting older expansions, maybe updating the art, and so I see here like older stuff of Queen Azshara where she kind of looks like Vosh, or like just kind of general Naga, whatever. And then they've gone back and done
Azshara was
updates.
a very mysterious figure back then, and they were just kind of working with what assets they had. It wasn't until much later that she became like the thing things are being centered around a bit more.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, and so yeah, in the more recent artwork and I guess what do I say, like CGI scenes or cinematics, she's much more detailed and similar to the artwork that you see in the game.
Exactly.
She's creepy looking though, like, and the artwork up on the screen. I switch it to a different one, but the in-game old art is very different than the in-game new art, and we saw that a lot in Scholomance and a couple of the others. So
yeah, things get updated over time as the technology and art assets increase, and they can have a better projection visually what they kind of wanted to portray before. But and sometimes something might be described one way if you're writing it in a book, but you're kind of it takes time and money to make more game assets, so you work with what you have. But essentially, Azshara and her Naga work to build a new city on the ruins of Zinajari. They're kind of at the edge here. It's called Nazjatar. So anytime you play a Naga card and they're mentioning like, for Nazjatar, that is why. It's essentially like humans saying, for Stormwind, you know?
Yeah.
For
gotcha.
Frodo. No, for Gondor. That's the one.
That's great. And this is a good example, right? So you see the picture here of the in-game artwork where this is the sunken city. This is the sunken city of Zinajari. And there's a big statue of Queen Azshara before she's transformed into a Naga. And so I've got up on the screen a couple of card art from the game. They're coincidentally paladin spells, but immortalized in stone and the Garden's Grace both show these like statues of the queen, and you can see one in the game here, and it's just pulled like almost exact replica of what the in-game artwork looks like. It is super cool. And so, yeah, this city has literally sunken. And so they say the sunken city, like, yup. Quite
literal.
The Well of Eternity collapses. All the water comes rushing in. She makes the deal to save herself and her highborn, transforming them all into Nagas. And it's like, well, I guess we're living underwater now. The remnants of her previous city have, now sunk, but they want to rebuild, and so new city, Nazjatar, right? So
right now, interestingly, there are not every highborn was turned to a Naga, because some of them died straight out, and so actually the ruins of Zinajari are haunted by highborn ghosts who don't realize they've died and are living just like it's still back in the Empire. Just like, I heard there's trouble, but Azshara will save us. I'm certain of it.
Oh, that's funny.
It actually, when the War of the Ancients started, most people had no idea that Azshara was behind it. They thought it was all those highborn aristocrats, and that she had been captured or was held hostage, and so they go to try to rescue the queen. She's like, "Oh no, I caused all this."
That's hilarious. Well, and the other piece that I read, and we don't get into it because the War of the Ancients is just too big, but like. Xavius is partially responsible for kidnapping of Tyrande. Malfurion goes after him. Malfurion kills Xavius, who is then like reborn as a satyr, which is the artwork that we see of him in Hearthstone.
A night elf that is turned into a demon, essentially.
It's like demon goat type of deal there. And then what was I gonna say? But when Xavius comes back and he's interacting with the highborn, then he's all telling them like, hey, I can make you into a satyr also. And then some of them are saying, oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. And then the really funny part is the way the Malfurion defeats him a second time is by turning him into a tree.
What? Oh, that's funny. I did not know that part. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and that's if we ever have an extensive talk about like the Emerald Dream and Nightmare, then he has a big part to play in all of that, but that is far beyond anything we're discussing right now.
Oh yeah.
So back to our main topic at hand. So yeah, they're building Nazjatar, and some of them are actually like, hey, we could rebuild the Zinajari ruins, incorporate it here, but we'd have to either drive away those ghosts or get them to submit to Ajira, and they're tossing this around, and for whatever reason, Ajira's like, nope, leave that place alone. I don't want you messing with the ghosts. So maybe she has some degree of respect for it. Maybe she just doesn't want the bother. Who knows? Like, it's hard to believe that Queen Ajira having any sort of compassion or respect for anyone, but it's theoretically possible, I suppose.
I could
maybe
see, though,
maybe she
'cause
considers it a museum piece.
in the lore, like, but there was an aspect when they were above the land where she was like, okay, she's got her kingdom here, and she's making the deal with the trolls to like, all right, you guys don't bug my people, and I'll leave you alone. But then it kind of went into, there's this one spot up in the mountain or whatever that she didn't want to touch where the wild gods live. And she's like, yeah, you know what? Let's just not go there. I don't want to get into it. That's a whole big thing. And I don't want to open that, can of worms. Not that she'd admit that she couldn't handle it, but like,
right.
And then
This is beneath me.
and so, partially makes you wonder, like, pish posh, like, let it be. I don't want to touch it. It's beneath me. Where it's like, oh, maybe let's not go interfere with the ghosts.
Right.
That's hilarious.
And so basically the Naga want, because they still have that highborn sense of entitlement about things, and now even all of their dark emotions are further, the dark magic transformation to Naga and all that. They're basically like, we deserve to rule all that surface world too, but like it's kind of unrealistic for us to try to just go conquer everything right now, so we bide our time and conquer the waves underneath where no one will notice and build our forces. Then one day our time will come and we shall rule all the world again. That's basically, so for about those 10,000 years and everything, no one encounters Naga on the surface. Then they start to become a little prevalent occasionally. There's some pop up here and there. Actually, one of the first times that Naga entered in the lore was in Warcraft 3. In the story where Thrall first meets Vol'jin and the trolls, they are actually dealing with a big problem where they're in a war with Murlocs who are worshipping a Naga sea witch. So, like, as far back as that, Naga were starting to become a little bit of a problem. But there wasn't really anything major until a little bit later. And speaking of which, what's our next slide here?
Oh, I think we have a song, actually.
Oh yeah, yep, it's intermission time.
Yeah, so this is a good opportunity to take a brief intermission here, as we have a very fun song from Goliath. So give me 1 second here to pull it up.
It's so good.
It's great. I just was looking for a picture to I was looking for a picture to put here as well. Hold on. It'll be worth it, I promise.
All right.
Holding on intensifies.
Oh, yes, I found it.
Excellent.
This is the part where I say I'll edit it out in post and then never do. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. Here we go.
Ladies and gentle dwarves.
The elves ruled a great empire on banks of a magic lake. They reached for infinite power, but that was a big mistake. The land they were on was sundered, blown up in an ancient war. The city of Zinajari, it sunk to the ocean floor. Zinajari is under the sea. Ruled by the Naga, come here a saga of Sunken City. They built the city Nazjatar for their queen superstar, marking the era of Queen Najira under the sea. Down here in the darkest ocean, sunk down in abyssal trough, the whispers of old gods linger, the influence of Nizoth. He transformed the elves to Naga to serve and survive the sea. The plot to destroy his chains now, finding ways to set him free. Or under the sea, in Zinashari, the beasts are colossal, some ancient as fossils, can you believe? There's great treasure, some alleged, send down the salvage crew to dredge. We get to Duncan to find what's been sunken under the sea. In Zinashari, Murlocs be swarming, they come without warning on Naga's decree. Even old hook-tusked pirate crew arrive to cause hullabaloo. Servants of Grawl, they come here to brawl in Zinashari. The Mackies they tech to keep through the deep and uproot the loot from century sleep. The pensioners swell, the curses they burst, the faceless will eat your soul. The tridents of tyrants, the sharks make their mark. The city is pretty, but curse of the dark. Come down in the sub and join in the club, you just can't resist its pull. Yeah, under the sea, in Zinashari, are the Cohen resisting, but Queen is insisting that they bow the knee. Neptune is lured away, but Naga wants him blown away for complete domination of sea population from Zinashari. The beauty's hypnotic, down and aquatic in Zinashari. The whole population is prone to mutation, skillful with magic, the story is tragic. You'll love when you see it, I guarantee it, in Zinashari.
Oh, well done. Oh my.
Thank you.
That
Well played.
that is like, I'm speechless. Like that you continue to top yourself time and time again. Like, not only is it catchy, but the words like are spot on, and it all rhymes, and he did the voice. Like, oh my god, I just want to play it again. For those of you listening, we will put it up on the website this weekend, so if you want to listen to it or download it. And this one we'll have to put up on YouTube, Goliath, if that's
Absolutely.
cool with you. So that's
I initially tried
done.
singing it in an even thicker Sebastian accent, but I couldn't understand the words when I played it back, so I had to be a little clearer. But I'm glad it still came through.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. I'm speechless. I don't know how you do
Rhyming
that.
dictionaries are my friend online.
Yeah.
But like it all fit the theme. Like you're incredible.
Yeah.
You're incredible, my friend.
Thank you.
I'm you have outdone yourself once again. Very impressed. Well
All
played.
right. So returning to our story here, where did we leave off?
So we have the Sunken City, and they're building Nazjatar, but we have some other kind of creatures and minions and characters who are also living down there. And so I think, I have a quick note in my lore notes about the Naga Sea Witch and how she is Queen Ajari is training her minions, if you will, the Naga Sea Witches, how to wield her scepter that we talked about earlier, which is kind of interesting because Naga Sea Witch is a card. But then getting into it, I think the next slide we have is for Priestess Valish, and then the Hunter Legendary as well. Raj. Oh no! I'm sorry. We're going to talk about Illidan first. Illidan Vosh and Lady
I
Satharno.
thought that we were going to talk about that one.
Yeah. Sorry about that. A little bit out of order here. So let's jump into we've got our Demon Hunter Legendary here, Lady Satharno, and then how she interacts with our good friend Illidan and Lady Vosh.
Right. So, returning to Illidan, again, he is a story that we do not at all have time to cover it in its entirety. But essentially, at this point in the story, Illidan has been offered a little deal by the demon killer Jade, and he's like, you've crossed the Burning Legion in the past. You've double crossed this before, but I'm gonna give you another chance here because see, there's this Lich King fella who's gotten out of control, and I want you to go destroy him. And if you can do that, then I won't torture you for eternity. What do you say, huh? And Illidan is just like, of course, I graciously accept your offer, master. But he's really like, oh, he's such a sucker. This is an opportunity for me to learn more Burning Legion secrets so I can ultimately destroy them.
He was like, demons? Demons.
Exactly. And so in order to accomplish that whole destroy the Lich King thing, he needed allies. And so what he just kind of cast this general look for help spell over the sea of some sort. Because remember, Illidan is a very powerful arcane sorcerer himself. At this point, he can still do that in addition to all of his spell magic and everything after becoming a demon hunter. So basically, just kind of like ends up summoning a lot of Naga from the sea, led by Lady Vosh. And the interesting thing here is that they decide to help him, not because, oh, you're so powerful, we respect that, and not because, oh, because we have a shared ancestor or anything. No, it's because the old gods want them to help Illidan. The old gods really like when there's war and conflict in the world. It helps to kind of fuel them, get them to be able to break the chains a bit more. And so they want Illidan to succeed in fueling his war. And if he becomes out of hand, they'll just order the Naga to kill him. And that won't be a problem as far as the old gods are concerned. Although that never does happen. It's basically Vosh ends up being relatively loyal as far as you can be under those circumstances, and is actually the one who ends up recruiting Kel'Thas Sunstrider to join Illidan as well. There's this thing where
he who shall not shall not be named on this wild podcast.
Yeah.
I know his card has made a lot of people mad, but as a character, he's far more interesting than that. It really is. What happens is that at this point, the High Elves, because they aren't Blood Elves yet, they're High Elves at this point, who coincidentally are actually the descendants from the Highborn who managed to not get killed or turned into Naga. So these are the ones who are a bit more, the arcane focused, and most of the ones who were still the hippie druid stuff, they'd stayed and, are the Night Elves and everything. And that's a whole other story about how they got separated like that. But the High Elves are actually with the Alliance at this point, but they are under the leadership of a very racist and abusive and incompetent human general named Garithos, who is just like, yeah, you elves, I don't like you. Just go and handle this thing that's way too tough for you to handle on your own and do it on your own. And then while the High Elves are having some trouble with that, Lady Vosh just comes up and like, hey, would you like some help? And Kel'Thas is all, I guess we don't really have much of a choice here. And so they, deal with whatever threat they were fighting. And then Eurythos comes over and he's like, yeah, you're dealing with Naga. You couldn't be trusted. I'm going to lock you up. And so all of that is essentially like Vosh breaks them out and is like, hey, want to come and work for my boss instead? It's a lot better deal than what you're getting here. And so she and the Naga are instrumental in bringing the elves over to Illidan's side, and that will eventually play a role in the Blood Elves eventually joining the Horde instead of the Alliance. So the Naga have a bit of a part to play in that whole faction swap thing as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But eventually, Lady Vosh gets killed in the Burning Crusade expansion when the Adventures of Azeroth, mistakenly thinking that Illidan is... I mean, he is a brutal tyrant of Outland, but it's all with the purpose of defeating the Burning Legion. He just doesn't want anyone to know because he doesn't want the Legion to find out in case they're spies. But that means that, like, everybody hates him, and they think that he's just the evil villain, so they're going after him. And part of that is kicking out all his lieutenants, and so Lady Vosh ends up getting killed in the process. But there's other Naga who are still part of the Illidari, which is the general name for his followers. And our Demon Hunter legendary is one of them. She is the leader of the Coilscar tribe. Naga are broken into lots and lots of different tribes, all with different snaky sounding names. And so she is the one who is kind of the leader of that tribe, helping Illidan's forces around the time of the Burning Legion's third invasion, which takes part in World of Warcraft's Legion expansion. So if you are playing a Demon Hunter, you actually get to have her as a follower and can send her out on missions or be your bodyguard and help you fight stuff in the world. So I think that's they were going to pick a Naga, and Vosh was already used as a legendary. This was a really good choice for them to have for a Demon Hunter legendary here.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, I love it when they pull cards from the game. Now, didn't you say that she was also instrumental in bringing over another one of our Hearthstone legendary cards?
Let's see.
Kane, right? Was it?
Kane's Sunfury. Yes, Kane's Sunfury is actually one of the characters who is working with you in that very same thing. Like I said, if you're playing a Demon Hunter, what your starting zone is actually where you're working with Kane and a few of your other Demon Hunter companions who happen to be a lot of the existing Demon Hunter legendaries, because kind of the only existing pool of Demon Hunters they have to create legendary cards with, because they haven't been around as long as all the other classes. We actually pretty much just all of them, really. If there's a Demon Hunter legendary aside from Star Student Serena, and it's like it's a night elf or a blood elf, it's probably one of these characters you're working with. And Kane gives some orders for you to deliver to all your different factions that are coming in, which include the Naga, includes like some Ashtongue Broken from Outland, includes some demons that are actually working for your side. And so yeah, there's a bit of a he's one of the commanders who has the right to order this Naga around, actually. And she's like, yeah, I'm cool with all of this. I guess presumably she is probably one that maybe isn't listening to Ajiro the Old Gods anymore, because seems to have some genuine loyalty. Like I said, she becomes your follower and stuff. So there are different Naga. Like I said, there are many different tribes, and some of them decide to not follow Ajiro anymore. So maybe they just kind of saw through egotism, or realized that they didn't want all this old god corruption or something. It's like, there's one group of Naga that decided to follow the Burning Legion because they could offer more power than Ajira could. There's another one that actually worshipped Neptulon for a while and got along peacefully with the tribe of Murlocs for a bit. And like, there are outliers. Most Naga are really nasty though.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No. Nothing to be sorry about.
Carry on.
That's about everything to cover about this legendary right here.
Okay, so now are the other two. So the Priestess of Alish and then Raj.
Right. So there's not much to talk about these guys, but they do have tiny little bits of story or things that they've done, at least. So Valish here is a Naga Sea Witch who is let's see, she is the leader of the Slitherblade tribe. Like I said, they're all like they really leaned into the snake thing for naming themselves. By pure coincidence, I am sure. And she is essentially just the leader of a strike team that is attacking a location known as Desolus, for the purpose of uncovering some ancient tablets or inscriptions that are relating to Neptulon, which is going to play a role in Ashira's plan to eventually overthrow Neptulon, who is the elemental lord of water, because she wants to be the sole ruler of all the seas. Like, get this guy out of here. Obviously, I deserve to rule over all the oceans, not a literal cosmic being elemental lord who is here millions of thousands of years before I even existed. No, I deserve to control all the seas. And that's going to play a bit more later. But essentially, this lady, this priest legendary, is essentially the character who is trying to get something that will help with that. And she eventually gets killed by a water elemental lieutenant of Neptulon's. Actually, the quest chain that you go through, where you disguise yourself and pretend to be one of her lieutenants, and she refers to you as Little Minnow all the time.
Yes, and actually, I have a note there because I saw that when I looked into it, and if you didn't bring it up, I was going to. So yeah, the note here is that she has the habit of calling those under her command Little Minnow. But get this, when you play her, listen to this.
Tell me, Minnow, have you done as I asked?
Hey. Do you guys hear that? Could you hear that on the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So she says...
Have you done as I asked?
But she says, tell me, Minnow. So there's the direct correlation right there. It's so great.
Yeah, exactly. So that is her little story, such as it is. And then our other fellow here is our hunter legendary, whose name is Nazjan. And he is essentially just the leader, actually the emperor of an area way up in Northrend, actually, called the Borean Tundra, called Riplash, that is kind of the guardian of this Leviathan creature that Ajara imprisoned long ago, probably because he was a nuisance, or maybe he didn't eat with the right fork at a banquet or something. Like, who knows why she imprisoned thing? It could be a serious reason. It could be a trivial one for all we know.
Well, and the lore story of her, right? And we didn't get into it too much, but that she had all this power, right, over all of with her magical abilities, but also her her scepter and some of this other stuff. But she could control all of the sea and the water and the creatures, and that she was cruel as well, to the point where she was having them do things to her bidding. And there was one part of the story where it talks about she had enslaved a sea giant and was essentially making it perform tricks for the highborn, as because she's mean. She's like sitting here making this sea giant perform like in a circus.
Always that way. She always took delight in controlling people against their will.
And so you've got this Leviathan, right? Or it's a kraken that she imprisons. It's been in prison for 500 years, and I imagine it was like, either it made her mad, or she was having a difficult time with it, or whatever it is, and it's like, be gone. So interesting there. Yeah, interesting there for sure. And it was kind of funny because, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but the colossal minions here, the majority of them anyhow, are Hearthstone unique. Not all of them, but the majority of them, at least that I can tell. And I thought, like, the hunter colossal minion is the Hydraloon or something like that, right? And I was like, why didn't they... Hydralodon, thank you. And I was like, when I was looking into this, it was like, they have a kraken Leviathan thing called Leviroth, however you pronounce that is what was imprisoned by Nazjatar, or however you say his name. And there's this whole story here where, like, there's a mission in the game where you have to get the trident of Nazjatar to slay the Leviathan thing. I was like, that would have been a really cool colossal minion, but whatever.
Agreed. And there's one or two more that we'll mention that I think could have made great colossal minions.
I do have one. Can I ask one question though before we move on? Because I know this guy's like very, very barely related to our story, but because in the game, right? So I'm looking at my notes here. I've got Rajan Shan, Emperor of Riplash, Naga in the ruins, which are up in the snowy area of Northrend, which is kind of weird.
Borean Tundra, I believe, is the specific region.
Yes.
But yeah, Northrend is the big northern frozen continent.
Borean Tundra, yes. So he was the emperor when Leviroth was imprisoned. Queen Ajara blessed his trident so that it would slay the beast should it ever escape. And so as the player, you have this task or this mission called the Emissary, where you have to basically get his trident, the trident of Najan, and then use it to go slay the Leviroth. And so it's like, so there's a card in the game here called the Ajaran Trident, and I was like, why is it a warrior card? Like, could have been a good hunter
because
card.
It's a weapon, and they like warriors to have the weapon synergy.
Boring.
But I mean, Trident is used by pretty much any Naga. It's
True.
So it's not necessarily a specific Trident, though that could have made a cool legendary weapon.
I thought they missed that could have been a fun one. It doesn't matter. Anyways, sorry. I just thought it was interesting.
Fuel for custom card contests.
Hey, there we go.
There it is.
And so interesting to have just one last connection with this guy before we move on is the reason that this beast got free and everything. Actually, all the Naga, they actually are kind of already being slaughtered by the time that you as the player get there by the Cavaldir, who we have. They're kind of like these undead Viking type of people who are in Northrend, and we have a few cards of them, like the injured Cavaldier is like, I'll take you down with me. There's the Mistweaver, who's that legendary card back from Grand Tournament, who does the bit of the buff to everything that's in your hand.
The Tide Caller or something like that, right?
I think it's Mistweaver. I don't know. It's not really the legendary.
No. You're right. It's the
You cannot stop the Cavaldier!
The Mist Caller, is that it?
Mist Caller, that's it, yeah. Okay, it was a mix. You said Tide Caller, I said Mistweaver, it's Tide Caller. But yeah, so there's a fun little connection with another group of cards that this character has as well.
How fun. Okay. Oh, the artwork is so cool too. I never realized. Yeah, okay. The Mist Caller, yeah, very cool, and the injured Cavaldier, I'll never forget. We used to use that card in a long time ago. Anyways,
back in my day.
Yes.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Right? That's great. All right, so then we kind of move on here. There is a raid of the Eternal Palace, which I guess we're
not getting to that quite yet.
Okay, well, yeah, where are we now?
Well, right now we are getting up to what happens in the Cataclysm, because this. Yep. Yeah, so this is a part right here where that whole wanting to get rid of Neptulon thing, that plays a much larger role here. So Queen Ajara sends her lieutenant, Lady Nazjar, who some Hearthstone players may remember as a boss that you fight in the League of Explorers solo adventure when you are trying to get the Pearl of the Tides with the help of the first time you meet Sir Finley Myrkleton, who, also made an appearance in this set, so that's neat. It's funny he's here. He has a bad history with Nagas. They tried to cook him in soup, if you recall. That's literally first meet Sir Finley in the adventure. It's like, Erudite, you seem to be in a predicament. Can you help me up to this soup pot?
It feels like such a throwback to like Cookie the Cook or something, but that's wonderful. I like that.
So at any rate, Nazjar, they have this whole plan of being able to get rid of Neptulon. And this is partially on Ashira's own initiative because she wants to roll the waves, but also is Nazoth is ordering her to do it as punishment for Neptulon refusing to obey his call, like Ragnaros and Alakir were like, yeah, we'll help you sow destruction and bring about the end of all things. As Neptulon is like, nah, I got over that long ago, man. This is not my thing anymore. I've moved on. And Nazoth is like, you don't do that. You do not say no to me. And so Azira, and then the idea is also that once Azira controls the waves, that it will separate all the other continents because sea travel will no longer be possible because they'll just, send storms and waves to wreck everything and stuff. And so it'll isolate and make all of the other forces that are fighting against Deathwing and the Cataclysm and all that much easier to pick off. But it doesn't quite work out because, of course, we, the player characters, are able to thwart everything. Even though there is this giant Kraken Azumet who Lady Nazjar uses that is literally powerful enough to kidnap Neptulon and leave his... Yeah, so this, I think, would have made an excellent Colossal Minion as well. It is practically a dungeon boss. It has very clear high power levels, considered to be like the father of Krakens or whatnot. And... I don't know. I think it would make a good card. Again, maybe mini set. Who knows? But if not, I think that I'd like to see someone make a fan card of it with the colossal style.
Goodness, the artwork is amazing.
So cool.
On the WoW wiki. Like, holy moly! It's rad. I'm gonna throw it up on the screen real quick. It's too cool not to. It's if this would make an incredible
Colossus.
This would make a great colossal minion in the mini set or something like that. Like, this is so cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to think, like, it's hard sometimes, I think, to have a frame of reference for the elemental lords if you haven't played WoW. And I haven't, but my brother did. But like, when you see like Ragnaros or something, and then you see like your little heroes standing next to him. Like, Ragnaros is huge, and your little heroes down here, right? And so if this thing is big enough to kidnap Neptulon, which is an elemental lord, like, it's colossal. So
exactly.
Colossal +6.
One can only hope. That's one of the things that we've been holding out for. Was a neutral colossal #1, and #2 a colossal that took up the entire board. So yeah, colossal +6. Please let it be.
Yeah, that would be really cool. But yeah, at any rate, that is kind of the big thing that happens, where it's essentially Azshara is attempting through her forces to have a literal hostile takeover of the actual elemental plane of water called the Abyssal Maw, and get rid of Neptulon even from his own seat of power, like ultimate power move right there. That you think you can do that. So that is kind of the extent that we see the Naga pop up majorly for a while. They're here and there. It's always Azshara has some plan going, and they're causing some problems on coastal areas for a while. But a lot of it is like, here's some Naga Easter eggs to remind you that they're a thing, and kind of hinting that there's something bigger to come. There is something bigger to come, because Azshara, again, is kind of the partially her own initiative, partially the whole N'Zoth thing, has this big plan in play regarding the island nation of Kultiris. And she also makes a pact with a corrupt troll priest named Azul on the island of Zuldazar to help him to get to release Gahoon, the kind of manufactured old god. So she kind of has a little part to play in that. Not a super major thing. Her main thing is on Kultiris, which I will remind you is Jaina's hometown. Her dad was the admiral of Kultiris, and after he died, her mom took over, actually. And there is a whole thing. This is in Warcraft's Battle for Azeroth expansion where all this happens. And there's basically, Kultiris is ruled by a bunch of different houses, and you have to go and solve their problems to unite the nations so that they'll be good allies if you're playing Alliance and whatnot. But in the region of Stormsong Valley, ruled by Lord Stormsong, which is a really cool name, and a bunch of special mystical people called Tide Sages that Kultiris has that have a special connection with the waves, and they bless all the ships in the Kultiran Navy, because that's what Kultiris is really known for. It has an amazing navy, a great fleet. but the fleet has been missing for quite some time because, as it turns out, Queen Ajira corrupted Lord Stormsong, corrupted the Tide Sages, and helped to turn them into these old god minions called the Kathir, which we mentioned a bit in our N'Zoth episode.
Yep.
And she's also trapped the entire Kultiran fleet inside this endless storm that they can't get out of, and plans to be able to have the fleet for herself. I'm not sure exactly. She probably wants to corrupt them in some fashion, add them to be powerful naval forces for her own ends, using like Tidesade magic and all that. But it doesn't work out entirely because, once again, player characters are able to stop Lord Stormsong and end that corruption there. But there's another character that has a hand in all of this too, is working with Queen Ajara. Her name is Lady Priscilla Ashvane, and well, Nate, you said that you were looking into her a bit. She's quite the character. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, the story here is interesting. It's interesting. So this gets back into Jaina's family, right? Like you said, Jaina's dad is Admiral Dalen Proudmoore. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
right?
Dalen.
And so this gal's name is Lady Priscilla Ashvane. She lost her husband at Theramore the same time as Lord Admiral Dalen Proudmoore's death, and so she hates Jaina because of that. Like, she's got this axe to grind, and so when Jaina comes back to Kulturaz, like, and Priscilla sees her, she's like, oh no. And so she goes to Jaina's mom, right, Lord Admiral Catherine Proudmoore, and say, oh, she's a traitor. But it's like, it's Jaina's mom, right? I mean, and so what's going on behind the scenes is Priscilla's plan here is to usurp the whatever you call it, rulership,
throne
of Kulturaz, and so, meanwhile, I guess I don't know the whole history, right, but she's the
leader of her own house, House Ashvane, and they have their own trading company, the Ashvane Trading Company, which is basically the incarnation of all the abusive factory workers from like Charles Dickens novels. There's literally a quest where you need to rescue kids from child labor that she's putting them through. And she's dealing in like illegal weapons trading.
Right? Yes.
Yep, and she has like a huge prison that she puts Jaina and the player character in, and you have to escape and everything. It's like,
yeah, so
she's in a lot of corrupted stuff.
She's providing Azurite weapons to the Irontide Raiders, who are pirates, that are then going to be used to, then this pirate horde is going to attack the Proudmoores, and the idea is to overthrow Kulturaz. And so the player character like confronts her, and she uses a smoke screen or whatever and escapes into the sea. And then returns later with a fleet of the Irontide Raiders, these pirates, to confront Jaina. And as I understand it, then the idea is that, Jaina's mom, let's see here, you can explain it probably better than me, but Jaina's mom gives her the pendant of her father, which used to summon the Kulturan fleet back, who then confronts Priscilla, right?
Right. So
I'm sure I'm like greatly simplifying it. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the evidence that Ashvane was already working with Ajara, because she brings not only this pirate fleet, she has a Kraken at her side that you need to fight as the final boss in a dungeon. Which I might say it was a particularly annoying and difficult fight at higher levels, especially with people who had never done it before. So it was it felt like something that you're really glad when you managed to fight it off, and then the cutscene takes over of Jaina, who basically her mom gives her the pendant and says, "You're Lord Admiral now. I forgive you." And Jaina is able to use her magic and the power of the pendant, which, in the hands of the proper Lord Admiral, can call the fleet home. And she's able to summon the fleet out of that storm that Queen Azshara had them trapped in, and they are able to intimidate, make all the pirates surrender. And Ashvane is locked up, only to be broken out by the Horde later on orders from Lady Sylvanas Windrunner, who's war chief at the time, and who is also working with Queen Azshara. It's this whole big conspiracy thing going on here, and they're all using each other. But essentially,
fast forward, right? Because we see her as a legendary minion in this set, and she looks a little bit different.
Yeah, Queen Azshara did a little cosmetic surgery on her. A little magic infusion, which she's like, I want more power. She's like, okay, here's the power and everything that comes with it. And then she becomes a raid boss that you fight later on. So yeah, she was basically also the reason she was down with the Naga is after she got broken out. She was teaching them how to turn the powerful material Azurite, which is the literal blood of Azeroth, the very powerful stuff, into weapons in order to make the Naga armies even more powerful. So she's like teaching them manufacturing and how to use the Azurite weapons and everything. It's basically being a general.
We can't do that.
Bad.
Yeah, but then she gets taken out in a raid. So that's the end of her story right there. But yeah, she was just a bunch of trouble.
Oh dear. Okay, and then before we get into our legendary minions here, right? We are gonna sidestep to go back to the treasures of Queen Azshara. So when you play the card, you have the possibility to pick one of 4 treasures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have those here, and I believe there is a little bit of story about each of them.
That's correct. These are all actual special magical items that have a connection to Queen Azshara in the story throughout actually many different expansions, some more significant than others. So we'll get started here with the slightly lesser ones. Ring of Tides is a ring that we don't know all that much about, but apparently it has incredible power. From the name, it probably indicates that power over tides or something to do with helping to boost control over the water. This is actually something that there's this tiger Loa named Kimball who lives on Zandalar. Again, Loa is an animal spirit, a wild god actually, who, we know that Queen Azshara doesn't really get along with all those wild gods. So he actually fought a Naga general and took this ring as a trophy from him centuries ago. And now there's these Naga that are attacking the temple where the Tiger Loa Kimball is inside, and also these Tortolan who are attempting to just kind of live on the area peacefully, but they're being upset by these raids. And so there's a quest line where you need to find the ring, which is hidden inside a statue of the Loa, and pass a test to prove that you are worthy, and then you go and have an audience with him. And essentially, you have to work him out of his depression, because he is basically like, Naga killed all of my followers a long time ago, and I don't trust myself to be able to protect any new followers, so no, I'm afraid I can't protect you here. And so basically, you are like, no, come on, we'll get rid of these Naga, and we'll avenge them, and then you can accept these Tortolan as your new worshippers, and you'll all have a symbiotic relationship here. And so the Ring of Tides is essentially just all wrapped up in that quest line, and the Naga want it, but you're able to largely keep it away from them. Again, its power is rather unspecified, but it is an actual object that's in the game that has a connection with them. Next, we have the Horn of Ancients, which from a card perspective is my favorite one for the simple reason that colossal minions are at this point still the new exciting thing, and I love just like, ooh, I get one that wasn't even necessarily for my class or whatnot.
Yeah.
So the Horn of the Ancients is not a weapon of Naga make, but it's rather connected to this quest line that is involved the Naga working with the Twilight's Hammer to unearth and resurrect this huge faceless minion called Sogoth. Actually, I think it might be. I think
Sagoth
it's
the
the same.
Slitherer. Yeah.
Yes, the same that we have a legendary card of. And so basically the Twilight's Hammer cult, who, they're the crazy old god worshippers, they are attempting to dig up this old god minion and bring it back to life. And it took 12 stone giants to be able to take this thing out the first time. And in the quest line, it's like, we don't have 12 stone giants to be able to take it out again, but we do have all of the ancients here, which, if you remember cards like Ancients of Lore, with who are the druids, they are these tree-like nature spirits who have a special connection with druids and such, and they are very strong. And so the quest line says, hey, take this horn of the ancients and you'll be able to awaken the really powerful ones that can take out Sogoth. Problem is that when you go to find the guy who has the horn, he's been killed by Naga because they're trying to make sure that you don't get it so that no one can stop Sogoth. And so you go and you kill some Naga and you get the horn back, and then you are able to awaken all the ancients and kill Sagoth again once and for all. And so that's the story with that one right there. So again, those are both more quest line item things, but still really cool they're included. The other two, however, are really big and significant. Which one do you guys want to talk about first? Naifu or the Tidestone?
Well, we talked about the Naifu a little bit in our last lore episode with Nazoth, a little bit. And so the little bit that I recall was that essentially it's like a sentient knife with like a, I don't know. It had a very sensual voice, right? And it wanted to escape the knife and eventually does, right?
Yeah, so essentially, Zalatat, that's her actual name. Naifu is an internet nickname. Just to clarify for anyone who's not familiar, she is, we don't know what exactly, maybe a sentient piece of an old god, maybe a powerful servant of the old gods, maybe an entire other old god that is just works differently in the lore. There's a lot that has to be unpacked about her that they may touch on in future expansions as they expand the lore further. Because right now she's out there missing in action. But essentially she was basically trapped in this knife. She is not the knife, but she was stuck in the knife. And she is popping up throughout history, basically being the weapon that whispers in the mind and gets dark impulses going, all the way from being in the ancient days a troll who used her to make lots of sacrifices that resurrected other large old god lieutenants known as Cathraxi, who were very difficult put down. It actually created a whole other ancient war called the Troll and Akira War, which is even more ancient than all the Night Elf Empire stuff.
Oh, wow.
There was also a time where she actually worked herself into the hands of a dark iron sorceress, and caused all sorts of, influencing lots of dark deeds to happen there. Basically, she makes it a thing that she brings out the worst in people, and they are wielding her, but in reality, she's wielding them. It's all part of the plan and finding a way. Keeps on wanting to be found everywhere. And eventually, she manages to manipulate the player character into doing something with Nazoth that sets her free, that's free from the knife, that we touched on in our previous Nazoth episode. And now the knife is empty. Nazjatar is out of it, but it still has a part to play. It's still quite powerful. And so Horde characters feel compelled to bring it to Sylvanas Windrunner, who in turn sees it delivered to Queen Ajira. It actually serves almost as like a bit of a compass that points the Horde ships towards where Queen Ajira is, so that they can deliver to her, and the Alliance is in hot pursuit. And that is where the final thing that we are going to be talking about, the final treasure, the Tidestone of Golganeth, comes into play. Now, Golganeth is one of the Titans, like one of the actual Titans who were responsible for helping to shape the cosmos and everything. And it is one of what is called the Pillars of Creation, powerful artifacts that were used in the shaping of Azeroth. This literally is a tool that the Titans used to shape the very seas of Azeroth itself. Filled with Titan magic, has power over the oceans, and Queen Ajara has been trying to get her hands on it for quite some time right now, and eventually did, and literally uses it as the Alliance and Horde ships are coming in to open up the sea like she's Moses or something, but right in the middle of the ocean instead of a path from one dry land to another, makes all the ships come crashing down in order to trap the Alliance and Horde people aboard them in Nazjatar. And she's using it to keep it all there, to keep the sea at bay, to keep them trapped. And throughout questline in Nazjatar is when you are basically making allies and trying to figure out how you can get control of the Tidestone instead. And it is just eventually, like, a lot of the quests you go on, Queen Ajara is taunting you the whole time. She's like, test yourselves against my most powerful champions here. Let's see if you're worthy. You should provide entertainment for your queen. And just like, again, she is taunting you the whole time directly as a player. Again, biggest egomaniac ever. I cannot say that enough. But it is entertaining also, just how full of herself she is. And eventually it comes into play that she has you there for a specific reason. She's keeping you there. She wants you there. You don't know why just yet. But there are some allies that you make depending on your faction. And one of them, if you are Alliance, is the little free legendary minion that we got with Sunken City. Who is a member of a race that is called the Enkoen, who are like these deep sea fish warrior people who have been fighting a resistance against the tyranny of the Naga for a really long time. And our friendly Blade Master here is one of the leaders. In fact, he is someone who can actually become a follower, if I remember correctly. If you do enough quests for him, they'll give you some special rewards like a mount and whatnot. So he is one of the main representatives, one of the main allies from this race that you have if you are playing Alliance. If you're playing Horde, you get a whole different group of people who are kind of like some outcast sea giants and guild goblins and other people who I'm kind of sad none of them actually got to become cards, because that would have been cool to get a bit more even faction representation. But it's neat to have some reference to all that with this guy here. And his mechanic comes into play where, like, he's the expert swordmaster who can counter everything. He's, one of the greatest members of his clan in wielding a blade, and apparently a bit of magic too. So that's where he comes into play there.
And you were saying, just for the people listening, because he's a member of the race called
the Enkoen.
The Enkoen, that were deep sea warriors that were mostly hunted nearly to extinction by the Naga. We do have one other minion in this set that is an Enkoen, which is the God, what's his name? Lightblade. It's the Paladin legendary, right?
Yeah.
And you were saying
that one
that
is a Hearthstone original character, but it's always neat to have the idea of them kind of expanding on things like that.
Yeah.
So they're very well could be. It's just, we didn't see them in this particular game. They are also distant relatives of Jinyu, who are a fish race that you may remember a bit from Mean Streets at Gadgetstan, because they're playing a couple cards. They are fish people who also have a lot of watermelon magic, and they come from Pandaria. So they are some of those Jade Lotus cards, along with Pandaren and Hosen and other creatures that come from there. And man, this is amazing. I love that we have this. I still want my Pandaria expansion because there's so much to tap there as well.
It's not that far off, right? Wasn't there something about it when like the Great Sundering and all the continents all was split and stuff, and wasn't Pandaria like somewhere in there somewhere? I don't recall. I remember reading about it, and
it was all part of one large landmass. The Emperor of Pandaria had a vision that told him that there was going to be this big disaster coming and he should safeguard the land. And so Pandaria was actually shrouded from the rest of the world by a magical mist, by him making a sacrifice and becoming one with the land. So that's the explanation for why you don't hear about it until the expansion where it comes into play, because it was hidden from the rest of the world. But that is not a tangent that we can afford to go down at this point.
That is so on key as a game mechanic, though. Just saying, like, okay, I'll let it go. But like, the panda cards always have Shroud, right? They do. Like, I was just playing
It's called the Mists of Pandaria.
Well, there you go.
Expansion.
All right. Well, let's not go too far down a rabbit hole, if you will. We do have a handful of other legendaries that we did want to talk about that were all. I think now we're getting into the raid bosses, right?
Yes. So after the questing in Nazjatar, which, by the way, as I remember, includes the ruins of Zinajari, this is where you encounter all those highborn ghosts that I was mentioning earlier, and actually end up doing a few quests for them. Try to convince them that Queen Najara isn't as good of a person, but it's like they're in huge denial about everything. So good luck with that. But so after this, they get control of the Tidestone. Queen Najara appears and graciously invites you to come to her palace. Because she has like the poise all of the time. She never loses her cool. She's like, yes, this is the plan all along. Come, you are my welcome guests as you come. And most of our legendary cards here, well, maybe not most, a fair amount of them are the bosses that you fight in this raid. So what is our first one right here?
So the first one is the Mage and Commander Sivara, which they're in chronological order of the raid bosses that you face. So this is the first boss of the Eternal Palace raid. And so yeah, this is and the Eternal Palace, I guess, is my notes here. The Eternal Palace is the royal seat of Queen Najara and the Nazjatar Empire. It was built after the Sundering alongside the rest of Nazjatar. So right. Commander Sivara is the first raid boss. I mean, I don't really have any much of a story there, but there's 7 of them, I believe. There's 7 of them, and this is the first one. So.
Right. Again, so we're going to be going pretty quickly right here because there's not much told about most of these. The only thing that we know about Sivara is that she has the rank of Abyssal Commander, says she is a master of both martial and mechanical arts, and has ruthlessly led Ashara's vanguard to countless victories. You'll notice that she looks a little bit different, a bit kind of crab-like there. Theoretically, I think the more powerful or close to Ashara a Naga is, they kind of are customized a little bit more, a little less the generic snaky stuff. My guess is that she infuses them with a little extra magic in order as a reward or to empower them for their service. So yeah, she has that bit of a unique look, and she has a whole mechanic where in the fight where she spreads like some poison stuff around and some freezing stuff around, and you have to stand in the right combination of things and not mix them, otherwise you instantly die. So that's kind of what's inspiring her card effect a bit. It's not the most direct relation, but it's a lot of this stuff when there's not much story behind a character, oftentimes the card mechanic will take some degree of inspiration from their mechanics as a boss.
Yeah, yeah.
In the picture, the Hearthstone card art, she also has a really kicking rad trident.
Yeah, I said Naga love their tridents.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the next one up is a colossal minion. Actually, this is the second raid boss, the Blackwater Behemoth.
Yeah, and this is, I think, perhaps the only colossal minion that actually exists in canon.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Right. All the others are, don't get me wrong, they're really awesome creative minions, and I love when Hearthstone expands on stuff. I also like it when I get to see some of my favorite bosses or lore characters as minions. Like I said, the bit disappointed that Ozimut wasn't in there, but this guy is pretty cool. He doesn't have much lore. It's basically, a guardian that Ashara has there, and it's the second raid boss you fight. But has a special mechanic that has a connection with another card in the set here, bioluminescence. Because what's special about the way that you fight this guy is that it's like down it's an underwater fight, so you are swimming around. You have to go up and down and everything too, which is very unusual for a Warcraft raid. But it is like in the deep dark sea. And there is no light.
Emphasis
And
on
so-
dark. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And so you are unable to receive healing unless you are covered with bioluminescence that allows you to be healed in the deep dark sea. And the fight's mechanics focus around that quite a bit in order to keep the people alive so you can finish the fight. And that is just like a cool thing that they made a reference to right there.
It's super cool. Yeah. I love it. That's super fun and a neat nod to it. I mean, and who would have known without really digging into this stuff? It's so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, the next one up is the third raid boss, which is our shaman legendary, the Radiance of Ashara.
Right. Now, this has a little bit more that we can expand on here, because the Radiance of Ashara is just one of what are apparently called arcanamental, which is like an infused mix of an elemental with arcane magic. There are a few of these around. They are created by a Naga handmaiden who willingly sacrifices herself to become an instrument of Queen Ajara's will, turned into these huge, powerful elementals of storm and magic. So, remember how I said that, like, she basically magically makes everybody love her? This is getting to, like, cult level territory
Yeah.
where, like, I won't go and say things that could potentially, have problems with maybe the ratings on this podcast here. I'm sure that anyone's familiar with extreme cult people and some of the things that a charismatic leader can drive their followers to do. We're approaching that level of things here. These handmaidens are like, yes, for Ajara, I give up my identity, everything I am, to become this thing. So there's four of these that have been faced actually. So this one is the Radiance of Ashira. There's also the Wrath of Ashira, who was assigned to help take over an area, a landmass that was called the Eye of Ajira, which is just this island here, back in the Legion expansion. That was back when she was trying to get her hands on the Tidestone. It was basically part of that plan. And there is also one called the Pride of Ajira, who was causing some problems over in Stormsong Valley. And there is the Fury of Ajira, who was also causing some trouble. That one is basically a world boss in Nazjatar that you can fight. The previous one, the Pride, was actually working on laying siege to a Kultiran fort in an attempt to further weaken their defenses. So yeah, there's a few of these things going around. This is how they get made. They're fanatical constructs, and this one here is one that you happen to fight as a raid boss.
Interesting to note as well, and I think we talked about this when we were looking at the one of our previous lore episodes with God, now I can't think of the name of it anymore. It was the Snow Boss. What is it called? The free legendary. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Lockalar, the Ice Lord.
Yeah, Lockalar. Yeah. Where it's like when you look at the card, you don't see it. Like, yeah, okay, cool, this is a thing. But like when you look at the art in the game, you're like, oh, that thing is huge. And that's kind of how this one is too, where you look at the card and you're like, oh, that's cool. But then you look at the picture in the game and this thing is massive. You see this little Naga standing next to it, and this thing is like 4 times as large. And so this is a true like elemental, which makes sense why it has the elemental tag.
Right, and see, it's the mixture of these different types of things, like the storm and the magic, which lends itself to why the card is kind of like the mixture of the different spell schools.
You get fire and nature and frost, and yeah, okay. That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so next we've got so in the order of raid bosses, right? So we go, there's a total of 7. So number 1 again is Commander Sivara. Number 2 is the Blackwater Behemoth. Number 3 is Radiance of Ashara. Number 4 in order is Priscilla Ashvane that we already talked about in her newly transformed, mutated appearance. And then we have a gap of 2 missing raid bosses. And so this is a little bit interesting. I don't know, you make of it what you will. My thought here was that, hey, maybe these are potential for mini set. So the 5th raid boss is this like giant octopus looking thing called Orgozoa, if I'm saying that right. And then
I'm not sure how to pronounce it myself, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. Orgozoa, Orgozoa, and which is on the top of the screen here. And then the 6th boss is called the Queen's Court, and it's made up of 2 these kind of Naga warriors. And I'm gonna mispronounce this terribly. Silavaz the Zealous and Pashmar the Fanatical, who are also conspicuously missing from this set. And so, mini set prediction maybe. I don't know. Could be. And I don't know anything about these. Like, it didn't seem like there was much story.
Yeah, there's not really. The one who we can't pronounce is essentially a spawning these more abomination minions that Ajara can use, and basically this is the egg layer that helps to bolster her Naga / old god forces here, and you're just kind of taking that out along the way. It's in your way when you're trying to get to Ajara, and also you don't want these things getting around at all. You have to fight some of the spawn while you're in the questing zone, and then you're like, here's where it's all coming from. You're like, yeah, I want to get rid of this. I want to stop it at the source. And then the other ones, this is more like the Queen's Court, the Queen's Guard. Right. And so they are basically like, 2 high-ranking fanatical devotees of Ashira. And what's fun about this fight is that she is just kind of standing and watching the whole time. And there's actual parts where kind of you need to split them apart and kind of, she's literally giving orders about she's treating it like an arena for her entertainment. She's like, now I want you to do this, and you have to do the specific things as part of the raid mechanics, because it's like she is controlling the battlefield just because she wants to be entertained. And you can take him out. She's like, oh, that was very nice, but I have a job to do now. Catch me if you can. And
oh, that's great.
Paraphrasing, of course.
The gingerbread man.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then our final boss, but for the queen, is the Warlock Legendary Zakul, however you say that.
Right. And so this is, an old god minion, clearly connected to N'Zoth and whatnot. And what I really like that they made a whole little class card system for this set based around his boss mechanics, which are focused on like pulling you into horrible visions and realms of madness. And so there are, like basically abyssal curses is the way that they manifest this aspect. But I think it is really neat that I know that there's people questioning about, how good is it as a mechanic. Personally working with it just because I love it as flavor. Just like throw as many curses at your opponent as you can. And regardless of whatever the card's power level is, I think it's really neat that they were able to take that flavor and not only put it into this minion, but make it literally half of the entire Warlock class identity for this set.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot here, but yeah, my notes say during the encounters, the cool cast spells that move the adventurers into the fear realm or the delirium realm, assaulting their minds, and so like the flavor's so good. I really like it.
Yeah, his little journal entry says, the harbinger for the end of days, Zakul shreds the last vestiges of sanity from a world in chaos, laying the foundation for Azeroth's new master. Ooh. But yeah, once you get past this thing, then it's time to face Queen Ajira herself in what is called like the last prison. Because as it turns out, this is the thing that is keeping N'Zoth in chains, preventing him from, fully influencing. And throughout the entire fight, basically, you use this thing that has been your main game mechanic throughout the entire expansion called the Heart of Azeroth, which is infused with the power of the Titan Azeroth. You've been using it to absorb all this Azerite that, like Priscilla Ashvane was trying to turn into weapons. Like, really powerful stuff here. And Ajira tricks you into using the power of the Azerite, literally the power of a Titan, because remember, the Titans are the ones who lock N'Zoth away, and only a Titan can free, apparently. So, she tricks you into, while you're attempting to put the power into the machine in order to keep it locked, she manages to siphon it to unlock it and break all the chains. And she's like, I tricked you this whole time, all that thing. Every time you leveled up the power of that game mechanic, that was because I was arranging for you to come and bring it to me. And all that stuff with Sylvanas and whatnot, yep, that was all part of my plan. And man, she makes you feel stupid. But then she still dies. Well, is actually you defeat her in the raid, but the thing is that she's been holding back her power still because she was playing with you, because she wanted you to do all that stuff in order to free N'Zoth. But she's a bit distracted while doing the ritual, so you do manage to kind of knock her out. But before everyone can deal the finishing blow, mainly you're accompanied by Lorthamar Theron, who's the leader of the Blood Elves, and Gina Proudmoore is there too. And there's the cinematic, which you guys can find if you want to look on YouTube or whatnot. I recommend at the end of the raid, where it's like they are coming up and Ajara's lying down, they're about to finish her, but then the chains all break and like, what just happened? And the huge inky tentacle of N'Zoth comes up and like gives Ajara like some revitalization. She's like, because she's like being shocked back to life a bit. And
I
then
love
just
that.
pulls her back down.
I love that picture. Yes, I know exactly the picture that you're talking about because it's kind of funny. But yeah, keep talking. I'll pull it up here.
Well, yeah, so essentially, it turns out that Queen Ashura wasn't going to release N'Zoth, or so she claims at least, wasn't going to release him so that he could rule over all of the world and bring out the Twilight and everything, because she wants to rule everything. Like, it's her right to rule everything. No puny old god is going to get in her way. So basically, her plan, so she says, was that she was going to use the empty Zalatath blade to kill Nazoth just as he came out. And she says, like, I would have done it if you hadn't taken me out, if you hadn't interfered, if you would have just died like you were supposed to and not interfered with my plans, then I would have gotten rid of Nazoth once and for all. So there. And Nazoth, he catches on to this, and he's not happy about that. She was trying to use him that way. So Queen Azshara gets pulled into the nightmare old god realm of Nyalotha, that is Nazoth's little hidey hole there. Which is literally another plane of existence that, again, we talked about in our Nazoth episode, has her ordered to be endlessly tortured as punishment. And so, ironically, in the final raid of the Battle for Azeroth expansion called Nyalotha the Waking City, there is a boss fight where you need to free Queen Azshara from being tormented by the old god. The old god's tormentor, chaotic minion, etc. Who, if I recall correctly, I think is the one that was the minion from the Dark Moon races. If I'm remembering correctly here, the one that reduces the cost of all your corrupted cards. You guys remember that one? Is the priest legendary that came with the Dark Moon races mini set?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Looking it up now.
Trying to remember what his name was. Because, yeah, he was one that I played around with to try and make work, and it never did. But it was fun.
Yeah, I think it's the same character. It's like a complete sadistic master of torture, who Nazoth employs to, because normally old gods are really good at dominating the minds and causing corruption and everything, but for those particularly resistant ones, like Azshara, you turn them over to the special high-quality torturer in order to break them. In order to embrace nihilism and madness and the end of everything. And so essentially, once you free Azshara, and I'll mention that right now you're being accompanied by Rathian, who has a special interest in making sure that Nazoth is taken out, because he wants to avoid the fate of his father Deathwing, of the whole being corrupted by Nazoth thing.
There it is. I found
Dark Inquisitor.
Zanesh.
Yeah, Zanesh. Yep, I'm pretty sure that's the same one. Either that or she's a slightly different fight, but I think it's the same one there who's torturing Azshara. Anyway, after you free Azshara, after you win the fight, she essentially is like, well, I was going to do this myself. I'll just tell you my whole plan. But here, you take the knife. Let's see if you can go kill Nazoth. And you better do it good, because if you don't get it with the first shot, you won't have a second chance to stab him with this knife here. And then she basically just says that she is tired of dealing with intermediaries and heralds, and there is a true throne of power that she is going to claim. Then she just opens up this void portal and disappears, and that's the last that we've seen of her so far as things stand in the lore right now. We may have defeated her as a raid boss, but she is still out there. She is as egomaniac and power hungry as ever, if not more so. And we have no idea what she's doing. And it is terrifying. And that's where we have to leave this. That is the story of the Naga as it stands right now.
Nice. So how does Rathian play into all of this? Like, I mean, I guess he accompanies. You said to not face the same face as Deathwing, but like Rathian, I guess, is a hero.
Yeah, so again, Rathian is a black dragon who was managed to be purged of his corruption, and we talked a bit about him way back in our
Mhm.
Black Dragon episode when we were talking with Anixia's lair and everything.
Yeah, because
But
he was basically
sent
a little whelp.
right. Now he's a bit more mature. He's a Drake now. But he has made it a specialty of studying how to prevent and block corruption. So he is your expert on not being mind controlled by N'Zoth when you're fighting N'Zoth. And he actually has this really cool little cinematic in the raid where he like is doing like all this cool stuff where like kind of spinning Zalatath the dagger, which remember is empty now, and like doing a big stab right into the body of N'Zoth in order to open it up so that you can go and take on N'Zoth's mind and fight him, like destroy him at his core. And Rathian, he's just like the guy who takes care of all that. And he just looks really cool while he's doing it.
That's
I
cool.
recommend looking up that cinematic as well.
Nice. We'll have to do that. I'm
He's
really
very
interested in checking
dashing
that
at
out.
this point.
Super cool. Wow, that's a lot of story. And just think, this is the short version.
Yes, this
So
is the very short version. We summarized a lot, and we've been here for quite some time.
The Reader's Digest abridged version.
right? Wow. Okay. Incredible. That's
So I
incredible.
want you guys to think about all this stuff when you're playing Sunken City cards. Maybe it'll give you some inspiration to try out a few that maybe you wouldn't have thought of before. Like I said, I'm playing with the Warlock stuff. Maybe it's not the best mechanically, but man, it's fun to play along with that fantasy. And do you guys have any things that you're thinking of that, man, maybe I want to try out this card that I wasn't really playing with much before because I like the story?
You know what I want to try, like when I've played a lot of Queen Ajara, but I have not experimented with most of the treasures. I typically will pick the one that gives you Colossus because
That's who I.
it's it's fun, but
Brad?
I would like to try the other ones. And what I'm really curious for, and there's a way to find out, and we won't do it on air, but we can goof around with it later. There's usually interactions with when you play one card against a different card, and there's like sound clips that will play. And I'm really curious to know what those interactions are, especially if it's like, oh, I wonder if there's one with Queen Ajara and Rathian. I wonder if there's one with Ajara and N'Zoth. I wonder if what happens if you play the knife and Rathian. Like, and sometimes we know, and sometimes we
Requires some
don't.
experimentation, yeah.
Now, a lot of times, the different websites and stuff will find that stuff out from data mining. But like, I just like thematically, the idea of playing these things together to see if they do anything. And someone mentioned earlier, I think, when you play Tyrande against Lady Vosh, there's a special sound interaction. And so it's just really fun to see that stuff. And so, you're kind of looking at this stuff with new eyes, and especially like, oh, I wonder what happens if, like, Xavius is like the worst card in Hearthstone, right? Like, this is the one where they removed Illidan from the game and turned it into Xavius, and no one's thought about it for years now. And and like, what happens if you play Xavius and Lady Vosh at the same time? Is there any interaction there? Like, that'd be rad. And just the story in general is just, it's like, it's crazy cool. And so I don't know that there's anything in particular that like I am wanting to play super bad, but I really want to see the interactions and kind of how some of this stuff works. And it's just more fun to for me anyways, to play when I know the story behind them, because like otherwise it's like, all right, it's a pretty artwork and it's some neat visual effects and some cool sounds, but like I love playing the card and be like, I know who that is. I know their story. I know what happens next. I know this is supposed to go. And like, you feel like you're in the know. And I like that.
Yeah, and for me, it's not so much whenever I'm playing something, so much as whenever my opponent plays a Queen Ajara against me, I will take a special pride and joy in slaying her, because I know that she would dislike that handily.
And if your opponent is using the Queen Ajara portrait, you'll take special delight when you win the game.
Exactly.
That's great. That's great. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for our storyline here. There's a lot more that we could have gone into, and you know, we may have to dive into some of these things at a later date. But this is you know, kind of the big picture overview. Goliath, thank you so much for telling us the tale and giving us your time. It's so enjoyable, and we couldn't do it without you. It's amazing. So thank you so much. That's kind of that you know, that kind of is wrapping it up for our show. We do have a weekly listener challenge that we should get to, and so for those of you who are new to this, most of you already know, but we have a weekly challenge every week. And so the idea is that we come up with a challenge for y'all to do that is you know, kind of tricky, kind of crazy, kind of fun sometimes. And a lot of times it's themed about what we're talking on the show. And so last week, our listener challenge was, we had just wrapped up the theory crafting event that we were participating in. And one of our favorite cards was Mecha Shark. And so, and so the challenge last time was to play as many shark minions as possible at the same time on both sides of the board, you know, to the extent that you can manipulate your opponent's side of the board. And so there's a number of minions. There was Mecha Shark, there was Grawl the Shark, there was Shark Fin Fan, there was Lone Shark, and Spirit of the Shark. I think there was a couple others. Tiger Shark. Anyways, that was the goal. And we had a handful of people participate, but the winner is none other, same as our winner last week, Ulticon, with a total of 12 sharks here, which is incredible. And I love it because they're so varied. And so, you know, there's the Grawl the Shark, there's Shark Fin Fan, there's the Tiger Shark, there's Lone Shark, there's the Spirit of the Shark, and then there's the what's his name, the shark, Genzo the Shark, right?
Genzo, yeah.
That's so great.
You got all of them. I love it.
That is,
and they're all golden too. So,
golden shark.
Oh dear. Yes. Yeah. New parody song incoming there. So I love to see it. So congratulations to our winner, Ulticon. So yeah, 2 packs on us. Congrats for winning. We will be immortalizing this accomplishment on our website in our Hall of Fame for all to see, and very, very cool that you could get so many. Love it. And that sort of brings us to this week's challenge. Is there something that we want people to do that is somehow thematically tied into this week's show or this week's story? Any ideas or suggestions? Really kind of tempted. You know, it's hard sometimes to do things that are thematic without requiring people to have too many cards. And so I love the idea of like, yeah, I want you to play Wrathion and play Zalatash dagger and kill your opponent with the dagger. Like, that'd be so cool, right? But then it requires you to have Wrathion, and I don't want people to have to crap that card because it's not good. So
right.
Any other ideas, either of you?
Well, let's see. I'm thinking we could. Have we done anything with Naga tribe synergy? Yeah, no, we already did. There was a challenge like that a while ago.
We had one recently where it was play as many Nagas or as many N'Zoth related minions.
Right.
And the winner, I think, had a board full of N'Zoths on one, and then there was another screenshot with a board full of various copies of Zola. But, you know, I mean, if we wanted to make it Naga-centric, we could do something like that, especially now that there's more available, because this was before the set came out.
Yeah.
I think that another theme we could potentially lean into is, you know, so the whole thing is, you know, the sunken city, and that the whole thing collapsed because of their powerful magic, the utter hubris, and then they just went on build back, trying to get you know, to make an even bigger and better city and reclaim everything. So if there's anything we can work maybe around like the sunken mechanics and about building size, maybe incorporating powerful spells. What are you guys thinking? What's something realistic we could do that encapsulated that theme a bit?
Okay, I have an idea, right? Because I did tons of reading for this, and it was very interesting with, in particular, with the Well of Eternity, specifically talking about arcane power, and as they have, in the not too distant past, have swapped up or classified the various spells as belonging to spell classes. So I've got arcane and shadow and fire and frost and all that stuff, and so what would be kind of cool would be maybe to see how much spell damage, you know when you play various minions and you accumulate spell damage, like spell power damage. So how much spell damage power can you get solely with Nagas and then cast an arcane spell, like the biggest damage arcane spell based on spell damage Nagas? Does that make sense?
Are there enough Nagas with spell damage?
There's a couple, and there's a Zola the Gorgon, and there's some. I mean, I don't know.
There's other ways to give minions.
There's ways to give things spell damage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Let's go with that.
So how do I want to word this? The most like gained spell damage to Naga minions, and then largest damage arcane spell. There you go.
And this would be something that people, I presume, have to capture with a screenshot, like while they're casting the spell, or
just spam that screenshot button. What, so the things that I think we want to see are how much spell damage have you gained, and then how much damage can you get from one arcane spell. Yeah.
And one way how I would probably do it is kind of whenever you're hovering over the spell itself, you can see how much it'll do. So one screenshot there, and then one screenshot where it's actually hitting. Let's be honest. The opponent's face. We want that going face.
Is there anywhere else?
That's the place, right?
There are some spells that can only target minions, but yeah,
exactly.
We want to see the face.
Well, yes. I think that's fun. I mean, I'm glad we kind of worked through it. That seems like a fun one. I like that. I like that. And so, yeah, we'll if that was a little bit unclear, it'll be in the show notes here. But yeah, most gain spell damage to Naga minions, then largest damage from one arcane spell to the face. Sheep, would you kindly tell folks how they can participate in these challenges?
Absolutely. So challenges can, of course, be played in casual or on ladder. So you can't play against a friend or against the innkeeper. Your friend will let you in, and the innkeeper won't try, but will let you in too. We don't necessarily want you to tank your rank, so you don't necessarily have to play on ladder, so you can play on casual. But we also don't want it to be too easy either with PvE content or against friends or whatnot. That would just make it too easy. So once you've gotten your screenshots from playing on casual or ladder, post those in our Discord in the weekly challenges channel. The winner, just like with UltiCon tonight, will be announced on next week's show, receive 2 Hearthstone packs on us, and of course will be immortalized in the Hall of Fame on the Born to Be Wild website. So we definitely are looking forward to seeing what crazy things you come up with. I just want to see a huge number hitting the opponent's face. I'm going to be completely honest there.
This is going to be one of those good ones we're going to see if people can keep on one-upping each other.
Right in the face.
Exactly.
That would be awesome. Like, yeah, the bigger that we can get it, the better. That'd be super fun. And it's thematic in its own way, and I like that as well. So very, very, very cool. Well, that, everybody, is a wrap for this week's show. thank you all for joining us here. To those of you, particularly who are watching this live, thank you all for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you again. A big giant thank you to Goliath for spending the evening with us and telling us the amazing story behind these really fun cards. And you have definitely earned the title Loremaster. And so, and I think Songmaster as well, or whatever the title is there. You were a gentleman and a scholar and a bard. I think in many ways, just incredibly talented. And so thank you very much for your time. And these are always fun. I love doing these. And again, this is the first time that I really spent a ton of time like reading, and I was like, wow, how do you do it? There's so much here. So yeah, I just newfound appreciation. And so yeah, thank you so much. Yes. All right, everybody. Well, that does it for us. We will be back next week with another new episode. Maybe we can do a little bit of story time. We didn't get to it this week, but Sheep and I both hit Legend this past week. And so I'm sure we will have plenty to talk about with the new set coming out and what we're all playing, how the meta is kind of shaken out, and whether there is anything to be done about these Kel'Thas Druid decks or the Switcheroo Priest or anything else. And we'll have a great time. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you again next week on another new episode of Born to be Wild.
Born 3 be wild?
Job's done.
Oh, that's good. Can we just play the song again because it was so good?
Sure.
Yes, please.
All right, let's do that thing.
The rhyme and theme was too
The
perfect to
elves
not
ruled a
match
great
up.
empire
So
on
good.
banks of a magic lake. They reached for infinite power, but that was a big mistake. The land they were on was sundered, blown up in an ancient war. The city of Zinashari, it sunk to the ocean floor. Zinashari is under the sea, ruled by the Naga Kamira saga of Sunken City. They built the city Nazjatar for their queen superstar, marking the era of Queen Ajira under the sea.
Some of the words were a little tough.
Down here in the darkest ocean, sunk down in abyssal trough, the whispers of old gods linger, the influence of Nizoth. He transformed the elves to Naga to serve and survive the sea. The plot to destroy his chains now, finding ways to set him free. Oh, under the sea,
Under the sea.
in Zinashari. The
Zinashari.
beasts are colossal, some ancient as fossils, can you believe? There's great treasure, some alleged, send down the salvage crew to dredge. We get to Duncan to find what's been sunken under the sea. In Zinashari, Murlocs be swarming, they come without warning on Naga's decree. Even old hook cast by the crew arrive to cause hullabaloo. Servants of Grawl, they come here to brawl in Zinashari. The Neckies they tech to keep through the deep and uproot the loot from century sleep. The pensioners swell, the curses they burst, the baseness will eat your soul. The tridents of tyrants, the sharks make their mark. The city is pretty, but cursed in the dark. And down in the south,
Looked into the thicker Jamaican accent stuff here, so it's a little hard to understand.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Again, and I can share all the lyrics that I wrote if you want to post those with it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Ahoy, hoy!
Yeah, under the sea, in Zinashari. Are the Cohen resisting, but Queen is insisting that they bow the knee. Neptune is lured away, but Naga wants him blown away for complete domination of sea population from Zinashari. The beauty's hypnotic, down and aquatic in Zinashari. The whole population is prone to mutation, skillful with magic, the story is tragic. You'll love when you see it, I guarantee it in Zinashari.
So good. So good. It'll be on our website. If you want to download it or play it, it'll be on the website. Thank you again, Goliath. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Until next time.